It is Coffee and Cauldrons, and on Coffee and Cauldrons, I like to talk about my own personal path. So grab a lovely cup of coffee or a drink or something more festive if you're feeling it, with a little bit of the booze inside. And let's chat one out. So today, if you don't know by the title, we're going to talk about social media and witchcraft, and specifically how it really helped me get into the craft in general, because, I don't know, sometimes I can feel like there's a big pushback on witches, and there's been a lot of people making videos recently about how the aesthetic and using social media and all that is just a new way. It's a new generation of witches coming in, the tools that they have at their disposal to use up as well as they could. And why not do that? So, and specifically, I wanted to talk about how I really found the term witchcraft, and how I finally found all these words that were resonating exactly with what kind of the things that I've been doing for my whole life and things I've kind of been searching for with spirituality, how I got words through hashtags and Instagram and YouTube, and this is really how I found everything that I love to use. So before I was claiming the word witch or even knew about it, I was kind of going through a really dark year, and it wasn't dark in like a depression sense or anything. Everything just kind of felt dull and useless because I felt stuck. I hadn't created anything in a really long time. I had kind of just gotten out of grad school, gotten an office job, gotten an apartment, and was just like, okay, like this is life now, and it's kind of boring and dull. And I was trying to make friends and trying to connect with things, and just felt like life had no vigor to it at all. But I hadn't really even thought about my spirituality in probably over 3 years. And I've done this for a long time, where I kind of like cycled in and like get really into it for like 2 months, and then I cycle out and I don't touch it again, and then I slowly but surely fall down kind of like a miserable pit. I had kind of started doing my normal searches again, where I look into law of attraction and raising your vibration, and so I got all my crystals out of their boxes and I started like playing with them a little bit again, and I was researching a little bit here or there, and because the wonderful people at Google and at Facebook and all these places track all our information, many times to our detriment, but also here's to the positive of that. So I was looking at all these things and researching different videos, and apparently whatever I was researching was all lining up to witchcraft, because suddenly out of nowhere on YouTube suggested to me the lovely Harmony Nice, and talking all about Wicca. She has a great series called Enchanted Endeavors that kind of just went through a whole bunch of, first she was just going through the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, all the holidays and stuff. And I clicked on it because I remember hearing about Wicca, but how I heard about it was never in a spiritual sense. The way I heard about it was very much through pop culture. And the term Wicca specifically was always like, it was some like really huge weirdo that was always on the outskirts, like, and they always depicted it as someone who's like completely out of their mind crazy, like you never really wanted, they're just like too fucking weird for society, like, okay. And so I was always very deterred from that, even though I knew, and like witch to me always meant the supernatural version, right? So if like witch, if we're like the natural versions of witch, because we are, the craft and all that is natural, it's from nature, these are the things that we tap into all the time. And a witch to me though was the, you know, mixed in with the vampires and the like all these things were mystical fantasy items. They weren't something that could be tapped into, or an energy force or something on another plane or a dimension. Like people who bubbled over cauldrons were just in stories. They weren't people who actually used tools and did these type of things. So I didn't really know about the true history of it or anything like that. So I just popped on one of her videos, and I was listening to the Wicca 101. I think she kind of goes over some stuff, and then it was talking about the holidays and how they really celebrate nature. And one of the things I've been craving so much is, ever since I moved to Arizona with the desert, is I crave getting out in nature. And because it was so hot, and it was springtime at the time when I was looking into all this stuff, but I was just like, it was like early March, and it was already so hot in Arizona, and I was just miserable and upset that I couldn't go outside, and I didn't really know how to change that, or how to just get out into nature more, and everything that is nature around me is desert and rocks and just not the stuff that I really enjoy at all. And then would you go from that heat and awfulness that I didn't love to an office that had barely any windows, and I'm just stuck inside all day, staring at a computer, doing a job that I'm kind of haphazard alright with, and moving on with my life. So as I'm watching these videos, I'm getting more and more fascinated, and I'm hearing words that I don't know what they are, but then suddenly the description comes in and it's like, oh, I've been doing that kind of already. So the next thing I do is I immediately go follow her on Instagram, and I just start going through the witchcraft hashtags and the spirituality hashtags, and I'm seeing all these beautiful pictures of crystals and of witches doing their thing and candles, and at first I was into like the aesthetic thing really drew me in, and then I'm reading the quotes next to all these photos and people talking about, again, these words I just heard in a video that were the things that I was doing, and I'm hearing more and more and more about it, and I'm seeing them post books of things I could pick up and do. So I was like, okay, great. So the first thing I do is I have my Kindle as I go, and I'm like, I'm really interested in this. So I immediately picked up, Harmony did a great little book review video for new witches, I believe, and she had talked about Solitary Practitioner's Guide to Wicca, and I was like, okay, well, I want to pick up that book. I want to read it and see what it's all about. And so I got a preview version of that and several other books to do with Wicca and magic, and I read them all on my Kindle. And I don't know, I really like reading like fantasy books and stuff like that on my Kindle, or you know, realistic fiction. Like fiction is good on my Kindle, but when it comes to like nonfiction, I have this like I need paper type of deal to really dive into topics. So the next thing I do is I'm Googling where can I buy a witch book? What is something that's interesting? And a crystal shop popped up in the area, and I was able to go there and realize that it was a crystal shop that also had classes for witchcraft, for people who practice Osteru, and there was like a whole bunch of different sects, and they talk about paganism, they talk about tarot cards, talk about all these things. And it was all through one video recommendation that I suddenly decided to dive in even further and click through the hashtags and click through all these search terms and really go into all these things and all these terms as I slowly but surely realized what their description was, what was the very essence of what they were. I was like, I do that. I already been doing that astral work. I was like, what is the astral? What the hell is the astral? What do you do in it? Am I doing it right? And I was like, oh my god, I've been doing this whole time. That's one of the main things that I've been doing ever since I was a little kid. I was getting myself into a calm place, letting my mind wander to the point where I'm somewhere else now, that I am taking off and going into a different place, a different realm entirely. And so I started clicking through different witches' videos. I stalked the hell out of the random witch in all her videos. I found Kellyanne Maddox and binged like no other through all of her videos, and for a few months I kind of sat on behind the scenes. And that was one thing I really liked about it, because if you're new to any of these things, and we have such a term, like I said earlier, I had heard a Wicca and they were someone who was really weird, had nothing to do with what I now know it to be. It was someone who was like out of their mind, like couldn't connect at all with consensus reality. And well, maybe that's something that's true and something that's actually beneficial, that now I know. I was, you know, really, like, that was something I didn't even want to do anything with. And it was because of social media that I realized, no, there are probably way more of these types of people all over the place. And it's not this big media depiction of them. It's something entirely different. And I was able to explore safely. I was able to look up hashtags and see this aesthetic that looked beautiful and then had some deep meaning hidden behind it that I was willing to explore more with. And I could binge video upon video without anyone knowing, because I wasn't sure. I was like, this is something I want to tap into? Was it something I could identify with? Or was it just something that I was kind of like, oh, well, maybe I just need to keep on my other weird spiritual path that I have no name for yet. Maybe that was it. And so I could binge video after video. I didn't have to like anything. I didn't have to subscribe. I didn't have to comment. I didn't have to, you know, even purchasing a book on my card, on my Kindle, kind of felt, you know, nerve-wracking in the beginning, because I was like, someone's gonna know that I'm reading this, and that's weird. And like, I don't even know, like, God bless the people who went out to like a coven to get their information before, because the rest of our culture kind of depicts witchcraft and these things in a very negative light. So for you to learn anything about it before, you'd have to, you know, even stepping into a witchy spiritual shop can be very like terrifying for some people. Like, you don't know if, like, is this some weird cult thing? Am I about to get sucked away and suddenly have to have sex with some old man in his 60s because that's what you do to please the great creator or something? You know, I don't know. You have no idea because you don't know about things. And so social media was a great way for me to just explore and really see if this was something I really could tap into and wanted to use. And hearing all of these women talk about things, Krish Ashburn, talk about being a death midwife, and that whole realm is something I didn't even know about. Or tapping into other new witches videos. Caffeinated Witch had some really great long talks about her path, and there's different, like, there's so many different channels I could think of that I would just kind of like, I sat behind and I lurked and I just like watched and watched and watched, and slowly but surely got the courage to say, no, I think this really vibes right. This works. These terms that they're using to talk about the thing that I've been doing in many ways for so long really works for me. And even though I've been doing a lot of these things, I don't have the tools per se. I didn't have the cauldron. I didn't have the altar space. I didn't have, you know, a book where I wrote down spiritual things and musings, you know, a book, Shadows of a Grimoire, whatever. I didn't have these things. So I slowly but surely started acquiring tools and using them and watching more and more videos, buying more and more books, but it was all because of that one video. It was all because of, as I was seeing all these people being so open and being so, you know, willing to share parts of their spirituality or sharing parts of their craft, of their path, and their struggles and their successes, and the ways that it really filled and complete their life. I was like, I want to just dive into this behind the shadows anymore. I want to show gratitude, and I could do that through comments, and I could do that through, you know, likes and saying stuff like that and telling people how much I loved their stuff. But I also wanted to share more. I wanted a place where I could really ask questions and really get in depth and have conversations and, you know, connect as I move forward on my own path. And so that's why I decided to start my own YouTube channel and start my own little Instagram account where I also post cool aesthetic things, so that if people wanted to ask me a witchy question, they could. I could connect better with other witches who I'd like kind of like lurked behind in the shadows for so long, because they had given me the courage to explore it and take on the word and really realized. And it was probably around 4 or 5 months when I started exploring deity and really going into stuff, and finally I realized that Persephone was calling out to me for so often. And the same night that I dedicated myself to her, I also took on the word of witch. And it was all around my birthday at the time. I was just turning 25, and it kind of felt like a, you know, a big deal. Like I wanted to do something with my life, and it felt like a turning point, like a real big click. Like everything kind of fell into place, and it was all because of social media, because I had a chance to really explore this stuff. So if you're a new witch or you're just exploring, you know, comment down below, like, you don't have to if you don't want to, you know, just lurk around the shadows, that's fine too. But don't feel ashamed if that's how you got into it, because I noticed after a little while of poking and lurking and making a channel, I felt the need to say over and over and over again how much of a new witch I am. And I am still extremely new. Like I'm, you know, if we're using like human growth with it, like I was infant witch and now I'm baby witch, I'm coming on toddler witch soon, and like, but that's fine. And it's fun to explore this and find a word that really means and matters. And you know, there's definitely some negatives with social media. There's definitely some people who think that because you're putting yourself out there, you have they now have full access to you, or that like any question is fine, or that, you know, they can't understand why they wouldn't respond to you, or things like that. Like I've seen other witches talk about it. I haven't had too much of that. I've definitely had some weird people who feel the need to tell me all about how the Lord will save me and things like that. It's like, really? Because I've tried him and he didn't do much for me. So like there are definitely some negatives with it, but I don't know, for me it does not outweigh the huge positive of the connectivity, of the fact that it led me to something finally that resonated so right for me, that made so much sense. So that's something I just wanted to kind of come on here and share my experience with, on how I really found witchcraft and got into all this, because I think it's important, and I think that's how probably a lot of other people are going to start finding things, because we just use the internet for so much now. So of course internet and social media is going to be a valid part of how people, a valid, important, big part of how people have found their way to the path now. That's how it gets found. It's not just you stumbled into a bookstore or you heard it from somebody. It's because you saw it online. Anyway, I make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Like and subscribe if you are all about it. Click that little bell if you want to hear more videos from me, and make sure you get notified when I post a new one. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.